Welcome to the Journey to Happy podcast, a podcast dedicated to help you in the process of getting out of your own way and letting go of the mental barriers that have been self-created that stand on the way of you and the emotional freedom and happiness that you so desire. I am Olga, your host, and in here I'm going to offer you raw but real examples that will help you step into the shoes of becoming the CEO of your own life. Because let's face it, in a world where you can be anyone you want, why not promote yourself to the CEO position? I cannot wait to see you inside. All right, welcome everybody to this episode of Journey to Happy. I am Olga, your host, and I am here today with Colette Fox, who is joining me all the way from England. It is 9 p.m. her time, so I'm very excited that she agreed to put her children to bed and then join me because the time difference is quite a bit. So I'm excited that we managed to get this interview on, that you're giving us your time, Colette. I'm really appreciative of it. The reason, you guys, I've invited Colette is because I've been following her on Instagram, and her posts speak to me for many reasons. One, I can tell that, like myself, she's a woman who has struggled becoming a mom. Her infertility journey lasted 9 years, and spoiler alert, she ended up becoming a mom. And I'll let her tell us the story. Her and I both are going to talk about our stories because there's some similarities, and we're going to talk about how she's overcome all of her difficulties trying to conceive mentally and physically. But you guys, she didn't just overcome her own difficulties. She then decided to gift us all with her own book. And so she's written a book with her life story, specifically to her journey, and it's called I've Got This, which is IVF Got This, which is pretty smart. Love it. I can't wait for you to tell us more about the book, what brought you to want to share your story. Something I really admire from women who have gone through infertility is the ability to share their story, because there's so much secrecy around miscarriages, so much secrecy around inability to conceive. And I think there's so much power in sharing our story. Personally, for me, that was very healing. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about what that was like and how you had the courage to publish a book with your story. So welcome to this episode, Colette. How are you?
Hi, Olga. I'm good, thanks. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast.
It's such a great pleasure, honestly. Since I saw your Instagram account, I've been wanting to invite you, and I'm so thankful that you've...
Yeah, thank you.
Where in England are you?
I'm based in Essex, so I'm just on the outskirts of London.
That's amazing. So by coincidence, you are my third British guest in the podcast this month. Pure coincidence. Not everybody was coming to talk about fertility, and everybody's from a different place. And I keep saying London is one of my favorite cities. I've been a couple of times, and each time I've stayed a month because I just love it so much.
Oh, wow.
Love it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Why don't you just walk us through a little bit? When did your journey start? What was that like for you? And what brought you into writing a book?
Yeah, so my journey started actually with my previous relationship, my boyfriend before my husband, where I suffered my first miscarriage. Now, I just thought it just happened to be a coincidence. I was 27 at the time. And then when I got with my husband, I had another miscarriage. And I thought, well, something's up here. This can't be right. But here in the UK, the NHS service won't test you unless you've had 3 miscarriages in a row, because they think it's normal. Plus, because I had 2 different partners as well. So they just thought maybe it just happens to be a coincidence. Then I took another 2 years of trying, and I wasn't even getting pregnant at that point. I was like, there must be something wrong, because before, at least I got pregnant, and then now I couldn't. So I decided to go to see my GP, and I told them I'd been trying for another 2 years and nothing had happened. And she referred me on to a gynecologist, who then spent another couple of years doing multiple amounts of tests. Now, here in the UK, well, especially in my area, you're allowed 3 rounds of IVF on the NHS.
So this is
that's your lot.
Funded.
Yeah, publicly funded. However, when I was going through my treatment, she couldn't find it. I mean, while I was going through all my tests and everything, she couldn't find anything wrong. Eventually, she said, okay, I'm going to refer you on to have IVF. I'm happy with all the results. But then she told me it'd be another 9-month wait. And by now I was already 35. I said, I'm not waiting for nearly another year to find out if I'm pregnant or not. And I was very naive at that time. I thought that 1 round of IVF and I'd be pregnant. That's not the case. So I couldn't wait another 9 months. So I started researching into the private route. And then I decided to start treatment on the private route. Halfway through my treatment, I got a call from the NHS saying, hey, we've got a space for you to start now, which was only 2 months after, not 9 months. But I couldn't stop what I was doing to start again. So I just carried on with where I was. Unfortunately, that round failed, but I had frozen my eggs. So from there, again, my specialist that was dealing with me at the time said, I can't see anything wrong with you. So I tried another round. That failed as well. And then she put me onto a blood specialist. So every time I was going through it, they said I did have high NK killer cells, which is an autoimmune disease which attacks anything foreign that enters your body. Mm-hmm. So after the second round, she put me onto a blood specialist because she didn't want me to keep trying without seeing if there was a problem. He did so many tests as well. Again, didn't see anything was wrong. And then he just changed. By the last time, my third round, he decided to put me on malaria tablets.
Malaria, wow.
Yeah, and that was what I managed to get pregnant with.
So what was the correlation between the malaria and the...
Well, they're not actually, I forgot the word, they're not legally prescribed here in the UK yet to use for anything for miscarriages. But I know he had used it for another case because I'd read it in the newspaper. A woman had 12 miscarriages and then he tried this and then she managed to get pregnant. So I was like, if anything, what I read in your article, I want that.
Right.
I was like, I'd give anything a go. I mean, the last time I went through it, I did also try acupuncture as well. And I did leave my job. So I don't know if there was less stress. And then, because of the holistic treatments, I don't know if that helped as well.
Yeah. So 3 rounds of IVF, and finally, obviously, you didn't give up, and you tried something that was like sort of like shot in the dark because there were no real guarantees, but you did it anyways. I'm forever grateful that you ended up having children. And if I'm not wrong, you had twins. I read that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have a boy and a girl.
You have a boy and a girl. Okay,
yeah.
So you got the world. That must have been pretty amazing. How old are they now?
They turned 3 last week. Complete handfuls.
Yes, I can only imagine. This is a parallel, but like just a parenthesis. Do you find that every time they drive you crazy, you just remember how hard you tried for them, and you're like, all right, I will accept you because I worked so hard for you?
No, actually, I don't. I think, why is this happening to me? I thought I could tackle everything, but 2 small human beings seem to get the better of me every single time.
It is a challenge.
Yeah, like just this afternoon, we just had our garden redone, completely redone. And I was just sitting down for 5 minutes trying to eat something. And they were quiet outside. And I went outside and they got these plastic golf clubs and they were smashing all the plants, all the new plants. And they took all the olives off my olive tree. They said, look, mummy, I have small cherries. I was like, oh my God, why?
And I want to kill you all at the same time.
Yeah.
This is a very interesting thing. Like my son is 9 months old, and I already can tell that, I'm going to need patience to raise this child.
You really do.
And like last night he didn't sleep. He's going through a growth spurt, and this kid wanted to eat all night. And I'm not breastfeeding him anymore, thankfully, because otherwise I would have been more drained this morning. But I do go back to this feeling of like, you really wanted this, remember? Like this is a blessing.
Yeah, you do up to about 2 years old, then you lose that.
After that. And I think this is a point that I want to raise, because if there is women here who have experienced infertility and they ever feel guilty, like mom guilt of like just being human and having no patience for your child, like that is being a mom. Okay, you're gonna have guilt, and you're gonna have moments where you love them and moments where you're so thankful they're sleeping. Because, we're just human. So just because we underwent infertility doesn't mean that when they're newborns and not sleeping, you're loving every aspect. Personally, I hated pregnancy, and nobody around me could stand me talking about our pregnancy, because everybody knew how hard I had worked for this pregnancy, and people were like, you should be thankful. I am thankful. The fact that I don't like being pregnant doesn't change how grateful I am for this, pregnancy. So sometimes we're like hard on ourselves. But I wanted to ask you, what sort of was going on in your mind? Because you're now telling this story, and obviously you wrote this book, so I know you've told this story enough times that when you say like this IVF failed, you move on to the next part of your story. But I know personally, each time one of my IVFs didn't work, it was like I had lost, somebody I loved so much. It was like really painful. And for me, it was very important what I did with my mind to just get back on my feet. How did you walk through that yourself? Because there were a lot of questions unanswered and a lot of losses on that. Like you had a total of 4 miscarriages.
Yeah, that's right.
So what do you find you were leaning on in your mind to stay strong, to try again?
Well, do you know what? It was a bit of a up and down trip. I am usually quite a positive person. I'm not going to lie, by about my second or third miscarriage, it was starting to get to me really badly. I think second is when I started to go down the downward spiral. By the third round, I hit depression, like really badly, because all I was focusing on was wanting to have a baby. It was all I wanted. I knew that it was the only thing that could bring me happiness. It was, it was everything I was looking for. There were the grieving moments. You see, like with my first miscarriage, the baby was 11 weeks when it came out, so I could already see the form of it. So, and it's hard to put into words to someone when you're grieving for a miscarriage, because you don't necessarily bury anyone, and there's no real mourning for it kind of thing. So you're just sat there in your own sorrows. No one can really understand what you're going through, and people will think, you need to just get over it. Maybe this happened for a reason, look on the bright side, at least you can get pregnant. Yeah. Which wasn't really the case, because it took a few rounds. In the end, people stopped talking to you about it. But I started feeling uncomfortable with going to baby showers. I didn't like people telling me they were pregnant. I started resenting people, started to get, jealous when you see other women down the street with pushchairs, and you just find that all of a sudden everybody's pregnant walking past you. It's like, why is everyone pregnant? And then you have these urges to buy baby clothes because you think, I really want a baby. Do I look like I'm crazy if I just go and buy a baby outfit because it's something I really, really want to buy? So I had a lot of emotions going through the whole process. When I hit, before I hit depression, I was praying a lot and wanted to go to church. But there was a point where I lost my faith as well. Because one day when I was in the office and someone brought in a new baby, and I asked if I could carry that baby just to give it a cuddle. And she said no, but as soon as she walked out of my room, she gave it to someone else to cuddle. And I just ran off to the toilet and started crying. And she had every right to say no to me, not to hold her baby. But it was just, I just wanted to hold or smell a new baby. It was just something I was yearning for so badly. And, you know, I would constantly be crying over small things when it came to children. And I couldn't even bear to look at like scanned pictures or anything like that. It was just too sensitive. But once I hit rock bottom, there was a time where I thought, right, I just want to go to church. And I drove to 3 churches and they were all closed. And I thought, this is just another sign that God doesn't want to help me. Why am I in this situation? And I didn't feel like I was mentally ready to have another go, like my last round. And I don't know what hit me. I think I had to like be depressed for a small amount of time, just drowning in my thoughts. And then I was like, no, I need to get out of this because I really want to do it and I'm not ready to give up yet. I just need to focus on getting myself strong again, because I'm not going to go for it unless I'm ready to take the hit again. Because when it does hit you, it's really strong. And my husband kept saying, oh, just keep trying. I was like, it's so easy for everyone to say, keep trying. I was like, I can't keep trying. I literally cannot take it mentally. So I did start swimming. For some reason, swimming helps my mind clear a lot. I started looking for signs for things, things to make me feel positive. I tried not to focus on my work so much because I tend to bury myself in work to forget about my grief or anything that I'm going through, which I discovered after my second miscarriage was not a good thing to do, because I did that and I didn't give myself enough time to recover, which ended up, I think, working towards my depression, because then everything hit me all at once. I started doing everything that I could to find good luck, putting things around the house, evil eyes, anything that I could possibly find. I stopped working for about 4 months beforehand, and I tried the acupuncture. But again, with the acupuncture, they say you have to believe in it for it to work. So I knew that I couldn't do this round without getting myself in a mental state. And then I started talking to people on forums and support groups. And I think that was probably one of the major things that helped me, because when I could relate to other women, couples going through what I was going through, and when I knew that people were feeling the same way about how I was feeling, it helped me to heal better and faster.
That's amazing. I just want to comment on a few things here, because I can relate to much of what you're saying. And I can imagine, I coach women through the mindset of infertility. And just yesterday I was coaching somebody who's very depressed because all she can see is her lacks, all the things that are lacking in her life. She cannot see the abundance of what is in her life. She cannot even imagine this happening to her because she's so focused on what's not. And I think that leads to depression one way or another, right? If we're only looking at what's not happening and our focus is on that, it can be so depressive. And sometimes depression stops us from reaching out to those groups, from sharing our story, because we're sort of convinced that there's something wrong with us. When we go down that road of asking why me? I know from my own experience, I became a bully because everything that I could answer as to why this was happening to me was awful. I didn't come up with kind, beautiful things to say about myself. I had a narrative in my mind that was really putting me down, and that wasn't at all compassionate towards what I was going through. And I really value so much the power of the community. For anybody going through infertility right now, if you can connect to your community, do that. It's the value and the healing, like Colette says, is faster.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you been thinking that it's time to join a gym membership, only that for your mindset? Have you been wanting to be a part of a community where your self-growth is what's being supported? Do you want to have a life coach in your back pocket, easy to reach at any given point? If you've been thinking that this is something for you, Reset Your Mindset might be exactly what you're looking for. It's my newest membership program where you have me on a regular basis answering your questions, where you will get monthly mindset trainings with some of my best tools and most recurring theme subjects in my coaching practice. You will also receive a work along workbook to move along, and you will have Zoom group calls with me to get your questions answered and to process some of those heavier emotions that you just don't know what to do about. If this sounds interesting to you, check out my website at www.olgasway.com and look for Reset Your Mindset membership program. I cannot wait to see you inside.
That's what brought me on to write my book.
Tell me more about it. So how did you get there? Because you went from losing faith in God, in you, in life, and you moved on to another IVF and changing that mindset, really believing this was possible, really tuning into your body energy, which is the energy we need for manifestation. And from there, success, obviously, bringing into this world 2 beautiful children, healthy children, and then writing a book to gift us all.
Yeah, so originally I wasn't planning on writing a book. I've never written a book before. And I was watching a TV program, and it was just it was a TV series, and it was based inside a bookshop with a book manager, and the girl was a new writer. And I thought, right, I want to write a book too. What can I write about? And then I thought, do you know what? The thing that helped me the most was listening to other people's stories and explaining my story to other women that was going through IVF. So I decided to take a pen and just start writing down my experience in hope that I would be able to share the story with other women and couples out there that is experiencing IVF.
So just to tell you, because you don't know much of my story, it took me 5 years to conceive my son. And so I'm a coach. I coach women through, and I am also a therapist. So I coach people through all kinds of dilemmas and emotional issues. And part of my coaching is based on my own personal experience. So I always share with them that I struggle with anxiety, and this is how I've overcome that. And I've always been a coach that speaks from personal experience as well as professional experience. And up to my last year before I conceived my son, I had the mentality that I was always talking to my audience from a place of having overcome my difficulty, so I felt I had the tools to teach. And when it came to my infertility, I kept this essentially away from my audience, my family. It was just my husband, my immediate family knew, but nobody else knew.
Yeah.
Because I don't know for you, but I felt this, I had this feeling that I didn't want anybody to feel pity for me.
Yeah.
And I was I must overcome this before I talk about it. I knew I was going to talk about it. I just kind of wanted to have my success before I could talk about it, because who am I?
Yeah.
To talk about
none of my family or none of my friends knew that I was writing a book. I didn't want to tell anyone. I just literally, after I wrote the book and I got a publishing deal, then I told everyone I wrote a book.
Wow.
Because even my last round of IVF, I never told anyone that I was going through it. Because for the other IVFs, everyone would send me messages like, oh, good luck today, hope it all goes well, fingers crossed. And I just, they're just nice messages that people send you, but all of a sudden I'd feel a load of pressure. Like what happens if I go through it again? Yeah. So the last round, I didn't tell anyone I was doing it. and then there was no pressure. And I don't know if that also helped. That you know, I thought, well, if it works, great, I've got good news to tell everyone, and if it doesn't, I don't have to tell anyone. I just suffer some more. I don't need to share the story. But I am also, you know, that kind of person that I don't always like to tell people what I'm doing until I've actually done it. So yeah, so quite a lot of people were surprised when I wrote a book, especially my family, because they didn't have any idea at all.
That's insane. I would be like telling everyone, look, I'm writing a book. So it's interesting, that point of view, because for me, it happened the opposite, that I went from not telling anyone, and I found it very lonely to suffer alone, honestly, because I just thought I would tell everybody everything. That's my personality. I'm like, I'm a book. Hence, I coach people from this, you know, perspective. And I have always found in my life to be healing, to share. It's like I'm sharing my burden with everybody, and everybody has a piece. So mine is not so heavy anymore. That's been my thinking. But when it came to infertility, I felt so inadequate. I felt so responsible, even though my husband and I both have the same diagnosis of unexplained infertility. But somehow I assumed this was my fault. And I walk around thinking, you know, I'm inadequate because I can't bring a child to this world. That it wasn't until I started reading people's blogs, women going through it, that I started noticing the amount of respect and like admiration that I felt for these women writing their stories. And not only that, I found myself now praying and sending them good wishes, you know, and they were complete strangers. Yet I was so invested in them, like having their family. And I was like in their next cycle and noticing, like, did you make it? Did you have a baby? And it hit me. I'm like, if I feel admiration, if I am only sending good wishes to these people, why on earth do I think that it would be different for me if I was to share my story?
Yeah.
Which in the end brought me back to, I'm going to have the courage to share my story, even if people feel a pity or not. So for me, my last round of IVF, I had everybody's messages. I had everybody's praying. I had people from all over the world who has never met me messaging me on Instagram. The morning of my transfer, I remember being overwhelmed with like tears of all the beautiful messages everybody was sending my way. And I thought, why have I been depriving myself of this for so long?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the same. Like, I wish I had that, but I didn't really start my Instagram and everything else until after I had my kids. But I really wished that I had done it or knew about it before, so that I had that support. Because even now, like, so many people send me messages constantly, and it makes me so happy when everybody reaches out to me, because I feel like I'm helping them. And even though I might not even be doing anything major to help them, I'm glad that someone actually finds comfort or inspiration or motivation with whatever I'm doing. Yeah, hope, exactly. Yeah. And, I don't ever want anyone else to feel how I felt when I was going through it. And I want people to know that they're not alone, and that other people are there, even if it's like the smallest message. Sometimes it's actually easier to speak to a stranger than it is to your own family members.
Yep. I find myself having conversations late at night with people on Instagram who just are following my account, Fertility Figure, and they were brought into by maybe typing IVF success or something, and they find my story, and I, like you, love to hear that just listening to my story has been helpful to them and giving them hope, because that's something I used to surround myself by people who have succeeded. I didn't want to hear all the terrible stories. I was so focused on no, I want to hear the stories that I want to experience. So rather than hear all the horrible stories that I had even built up in my head about IVF, I wanted to see that this was a possibility. And that really helped me. Just that proximity to people who had what I really wanted. And holding on to babies was my visualization, this could be my baby. If I can hold this baby, I own at some point. So your book, then, you're describing what you went through. why should people read your book? What's happening in your book that you think is like everybody should get their hands on?
Yeah, so it's a memoir. So it is, the way I've written it is if I am speaking to you. I haven't held back on anything. I've described everything. I haven't really cared of, how people might perceive me. Like, there might be someone that's really strong with their faith and religion, but I have not been scared to say that I lost my faith during it. I describe, so that when you're reading it, if you walked into the hospital, you could see and smell what I could see and smell. I describe the mental issues that I had, trying to balance my work life with trying to have a baby. When I first met my husband and how we all started, like how we started trying, the different routes that I tried, basically everything that I went through from start to finish.
So that's amazing, because I think that, as you and I just said, so many of us women trying to conceive and not being successful, and women having miscarriages, have kept this a secret from everybody. That it is so nice to be able to find a sincere story, because then we can see ourselves in there. Like, I remember I nearly divorced my husband while we were 3 years into trying to conceive, and quite honestly, the best way to describe it is I became a control freak. I wanted to control the move of every little thing. And nobody ever told me this was normal. Had we known this was normal, right? We would have been made patient with each other. We would have known. I had an urge internally that knew my time was kicking, I didn't have, I have low egg reserve, and it's almost like I intuitively knew this, and I was like, it has to happen.
I mean, I talk about all my self-doubt, my body image issues that I had, everything, what people were saying to me, how it affected me. Like, I didn't hold back at all. I just wrote about everything. And one of the main reasons that I did that is because when I was trying as well, I couldn't find any books that really gave me like a full story about what had happened. Like, you could read a lot of short stories all the time. And books that I tend to come across seem to be more medical. So I wanted to be able to share my story and hope that, someone would read it and relate to it and realise, because when you go through it, you think you're the only person going through it. But actually, a lot of people go through the same thing.
Well,
it's normal.
One in 6 Canadians. That's a huge number. And this is 1 in 4. Like, this is insane, right? Like, that's a really large number, and people don't know. So I think this is amazing. I haven't read your book yet. I am going to, and I'm so thankful that you put it out there and that you were so brutally honest. Also, why I love this podcast today, because I want people to know the real side of infertility and what our lives became and how our lives were and how much they've changed, right? Because I see my life before and after infertility, kind of like just marked it. And one of the reasons I became so passionate about coaching women is the mindset. Nobody talks about the mindset of fertility. So when you're trying to conceive, we're all about like seeing the specialist, the acupuncturist, the reflexologist, the massage therapist, I even saw a detox expert. Like, I was trying to detoxify from heavy metals in my body. Not once did it occur to me to go see somebody who could help me with my mindset. How am I looking at this that is not helpful to me? And how can I bring my mind in alignment so that this experience becomes pleasant, regardless of the outcome?
Yeah.
And to me, that's where I focus my energy. And that's personally where I brought my own success, was I finally reached a point of detaching to the outcome. I've got this beautiful desire of becoming a mother. And whether I birth this child or not, I would claim motherhood already. Like, I'm the mom of this baby that I don't even know, embryo at that point, right? Like, that's how in the IVF world, they're not even called babies, they're embryos. They're my babies.
Same.
And I was able to let go of that attachment. Do I do this? You give me a baby. That was like my exchange with IVF. Like you, I had this naive notion that, well, they couldn't find anything wrong with me. Therefore, one IVF for sure will get me pregnant.
Right. Yeah.
So something that I help people with, which took me a while to figure it out, was to let go of expectations.
Yeah.
Because do you find expectations is what makes this journey so hard? We put timelines.
We do. Yeah. Yeah. It's just like how you expect that, you know, every month when you're trying the ovulation stick, that you're going to get pregnant every time you try it. Doesn't work like that. You can guarantee your period will be irregular that month, or you've missed the window.
Yeah. So I found myself, how did you cope with expectations? Because I did a lot of work on letting go of expectations, and I turned into intentions instead to still get control over something, but just save myself the disappointment of an unmet expectation. How did you handle that?
See, I was the opposite to you. So every time I still had expectations, but that's because every time I fell pregnant and I would take a pregnancy test and it would be positive, I thought I could probably lose this baby again in the next week to 5 weeks. But I didn't want to lose those memories or put pressure of those first few weeks of me being pregnant every time. I wanted each one to be a different, like it was the first time I was going through it every single time. Nice. Because I thought I didn't want to actually get pregnant and think, well, you know what, for the first 10 weeks I was constantly worried that I was going to lose the baby instead of actually enjoying being pregnant. So, you know, I had this bad habit of Googling everything as well. You know, oh, it's going to be the size of a lime today. It's got a heartbeat today. Maybe I should go for a scan today and see how it is. And yeah, I did have expectations, but I kept talking myself into saying, you have to be able to accept the failure as well. But also know that, you know, if it does happen, you haven't wasted this energy, this like positive energy, something that's going to happen.
Oh my God, I love this. I've got a client currently who's pregnant with her 4th pregnancy after three losses. One of those was full-term loss. Okay, so like a stillbirth, very painful.
Yeah.
This is exactly what we're talking about, like managing your own emotions of where you want to be realistic, but you also want to be able to dive into the joy and the happiness of like, this is a brand new pregnancy. And what you described is in mindfulness, I'm a mindfulness teacher, we call this the beginner's mind. You know, it's like this ability to come back into doing something that you may have done many times before, but with the mindset of I'm doing this as if it was for the first time. And I love it because what you said is exactly the truth. The reason I think I kept trying is because I treated each opportunity, each treatment as a whole brand new, as if I had never done it before. And I wouldn't let the past come in to get the best of me, because then if I did end up losing, or this IVF ended up being a failed IVF, I would have started the suffering way before that. Right? Like that was gonna hurt no matter what. So there's no, you can't bank emotions. You can't say, I'm gonna suffer from now so that if it does, if I get to a loss, then it's not gonna be so bad. It's still terrible and painful. So my advice is always like, enjoy the good moments and trust that when the bad moments come, if they come, you will cope with that. And you don't need to have started the suffering months before or weeks before. So that's
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, by my third miscarriage, I was already numb to the idea of having a miscarriage. Wow. But every time I got pregnant, I would still jump up and down, be like, yes, I'm pregnant again. Come on, baby, we can do this. We can get through this. You know, I would do the same thing every time. But I was like, no, because I would sit there with like maybe 5 or 6 pregnancy tests. I thought, I'll just keep checking them again, just make sure that they're still there. You know, it was just, I might have been crazy doing it, but I just felt like that helped me, you know, get over the last lot that I had.
For sure. I tested the first 3 weeks of my pregnancy, I think, every day. My husband was thinking I was going crazy. He's like, my last pregnancy. He's like, I think we can safely assume you're pregnant. And, here in Canada, they make you do blood work. At least my clinic. Once you have a positive test, I had to go. I actually went a total of 4 times to make sure that the hormone was increasing.
Yeah.
And my hormones were through the roof to the point that they thought I had twins because it was so high. It was just one big baby. But I still test it every day because that's just what the past experiences teach us, right? Like to just we now know it's fragile. Pregnancies are fragile. So it's understanding.
But every time I went through, I learned something else. Yeah. So that also helped me deal with it as well. So like on my 3rd one, I had to have the blood test done. And they said it wasn't that high and that I could probably, if it doesn't increase in the next 2 days, that in the next 5 days I would miscarry. So I was already prepared for that. So when it happened, I didn't have any emotions towards it because I was already pre-warned. And on my last time, they said that my blood, I was nervous for the phone call to see how my bloods are doing. They said, no, it's really high. I think you could probably be having twins. I was like, no way.
And yes way.
Yes way.
Well, congrats again. Like, I love hearing positive stories. One of the reasons I brought you into the podcast is because I love for people who, like you and I, are looking for hope, can find the sources to get that hope. And for you guys listening, if you want to read a story with a happy ending, but a real story, then look for Colette's book. It will be in the notes here, a link to where you can purchase it. I think you said is found on
Amazon.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
You guys, she's super responsive. I contacted her through Instagram. She replied almost right away. I love, like, I've connected with a few authors myself of books that I read, and I was like, I want to know a little bit more. So do people have your permission to contact you?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Also,
definitely
you have a podcast. What is it called? I
do. Yeah, it's called The Road to Motherhood. Yeah, and it's available on Apple and Spotify and Stitcher and Outcast. So it's most podcast platforms it's available on.
That's amazing. So I think you guys should also go listen to her podcast. I'm guessing it's all about fertility and this journey to becoming a mom. Well,
actually, I've mixed it up a little bit. So it's about fertility, but it is also about mums as well. Because, that's right. Because once you do become a mum, it's also very difficult. There are a lot of trials in that as well.
I know what you're talking about. I'm so happy to hear this. There's a few subjects that people don't talk much about. Secondary infertility, for example.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So people think that infertility ends the day we have a baby in our hands. And like, no, my friends, it doesn't. I see now a lot of the people who were pregnant with me at the same time when I got pregnant with my son, Mateo, are now on baby number 2. And I know for a fact that's not a possibility for me. And, you go back to all the feelings and emotions that I did before I even had Mateo, where you just see people and you're like, I don't have that freedom. That chance is not in my hands. Like, that's not like a choice that I can make and say like, oh yeah, Mateo's almost 1. I have to make baby number 2. And the other one is the realities of motherhood as I'm navigating through them. And an entrepreneur, I'm new at being a mom and a business owner. And I'm learning so much. And of course, most of the podcasts, other than business related, that I listen to are motherhood related. Like, you ladies, tell me, how did you manage this? Like, this there's so much to learn about them, which I think of my son as a mentor. He came here to teach me, and he's been teaching me even before he was here. So I think that's amazing. So we can catch your podcast anywhere, in all the podcast outlets. Any last words of remark that you want to leave with this audience, Colette? I know it's time is ticking, it's late in England, so.
Yeah, just basically anyone that's going through any form of treatment or infertility, don't give up hope. Find whatever it is that you need to do to give you that positivity, whether it's exercise, whether it's volunteering somewhere, try not to put your whole focus into having a baby, which I know is very difficult. It is very difficult, but you do need to try and find some other kind of outlet, because once you do go through IVF or any kind of treatment like that, it is very stressful and it does take a big toll on you emotionally as well as physically. So you need to be prepared for it.
Yeah, I would second all of that. And I would add, look for your crew. Look for the people that will support you, whether they're relatives,
and there are a lot of people out there.
Doctors, yes, find yourself a team. I talk about my team, and without my team, I don't think that I would have been as strong mentally and physically. And my team had family, had friends, and had professionals. And there's zero shame, to say that it took a whole team to create my baby and to support me so that I could be strong, or as strong as possible, because it's okay to not be strong and have moments where you feel like you're breaking down. Colette was talking to us about how she went through deep depression, which I think is a big reality for many women who are trying to conceive. And especially if you've experienced loss and grief. Grief is a real feeling. And you don't have to justify, that I grieved every period. Every period to me felt like a loss. It's like losing a baby, because I was hoping and hopeful to get a pregnancy. So each period felt like an immense loss. So to me, grief is the most recurring emotion in infertility. And that's a serious feeling that deserves a lot of compassion and attention and processing. So do whatever it takes to support yourself so that no matter what, you've got you. That you've got the supports around you. By all means, read Colette's book, jump into her podcast, reach out to me, reach out to her. If we can support you in any way, we'll be so happy, because we've been there. We know what you're going through, and we don't want you to go through it alone. That's why she wrote a book. That's why I coach women in mindset through infertility, and I actually run a mindset group coaching where people have the ability to just connect with other women who are going through this. But we're not just sitting there to talk about how sad our story is. We're learning tools of mindset to just show up differently, to respond to the difficulties of infertility from a nicer perspective. Colette, thank you so much for staying up late, for taking the time to be with us here. I know. Actually, I have a lot of listeners in England for some odd reason, and the rest are here in North America. So I know that we appreciate your time, and we appreciate you honestly writing this book. Thank you. And I hope to see you again in the podcast. Maybe if you guys like this episode, if you had more questions for Colette or for myself that you want us to talk about, please don't forget to write it in the comments. Let us know what you thought. Let us know what you want more information on. Always looking at your comments, and I'm always responding to them. If you haven't hit subscribe, do that now so that you can be notified of my next episode. Thank you so much, and I will catch you guys at my next episode.